that actually made me put pen to paper was to give Black American males a Western hero.
Quentin Tarantino has always been more than just a director. He's a movie lover first and a filmmaker second. You can hear it in his interviews, read it in his books, and see it in every frame of his films. He doesn't just make movies, he curates them, almost like a DJ piecing together the perfect playlist. And central to that vision are the actors who bring his words to life. Tarantino doesn't simply cast performers, he builds worlds around them, often writing dialogue with a specific cadence, tone, or personality in mind. From his earliest days scraping together Reservoir Dogs to the global phenomenon of Pulp Fiction, and later his sprawling historical epics like Inglourious Basterds and Django Unchained, Tarantino has surrounded himself with actors who not only understand his style, but thrive within it. Some of these collaborations blossomed into lifelong partnerships, while others burned briefly but brightly, leaving unforgettable marks on film history. This countdown imagines the 10 actors Tarantino himself might point to as his favorites. It's a list built not just on talent, but on trust, chemistry, and the kind of performances that have defined his legacy. So let's dive in, from number 10 all the way down to number 1. Number 10. Lucy Liu, Kill Bill Vol. 1. When Quentin Tarantino cast Lucy Liu as O-Ren Ishii in Kill Bill Vol. 1, he wasn't just looking for another villain. He wanted someone who could embody elegance and brutality in equal measure. O-Ren is a woman who rose from trauma and violence to become the head of the Tokyo underworld. On paper, that sounds like an archetype we've seen before. But Liu brought an unmistakable grace and fire to the role that elevated it far beyond stereotype. One of her defining moments comes during her first confrontation with the bride. After decapitating a Yakuza rebel who questions her authority, O-Ren turns to Uma Thurman's character and declares with chilling calm,
"You may not be able to fight like a samurai, but you can at least die like a samurai."
It's a line dripping with both honor and menace, and Liu delivers it in a way that makes you believe every syllable. Tarantino himself praised Liu for this balance. He noted that her performance carried both the poise of a queen and the ferocity of a warrior. That duality is what makes her so unforgettable. In a film packed with spectacle, O-Ren's Snowy Garden duel remains one of the most iconic scenes Tarantino has ever shot. And that's largely thanks to Liu's commanding presence. What's fascinating is that Lucy Liu wasn't a regular in Tarantino's circle before Kill Bill. Yet after her performance, it's easy to see why he'd count her among his favorites. She proved she could take his stylized dialogue, his operatic violence, and his love of genre cinema, and fuse them into a character that lingers in the audience's imagination long after the credits roll. Number 9. Michael Madsen, Reservoir Dogs. If Quentin Tarantino had a cinematic alter ego, many fans argue it would be Michael Madsen. With his cool, laconic delivery and a knack for mixing charm with menace, Madsen became one of the defining faces of Tarantino's debut feature, Reservoir Dogs. As Mr. Blonde, Madsen doesn't just play a criminal, he personifies unpredictability. One of his most famous moments is the chillingly understated taunt to his fellow crooks.
Are you gonna bark all day, little doggy? Or are you gonna bite?
What makes the line so effective is how Madsen delivers it. There's no yelling, no theatrics, just a calm, almost casual tone that carries more threat than shouting ever could. Tarantino has often praised Madsen for this very quality, his ability to embody danger without needing to raise his voice. In interviews, Tarantino revealed that he wrote the role of Mr. Blonde specifically with Madsen in mind. That's no small compliment for a first-time director. It shows the level of trust and admiration he already had for Madsen's craft. The collaboration didn't end there. Tarantino would later bring Madsen back for Kill Bill, where he played Bud, the washed-up assassin living in a trailer. Even in a supporting role, Madsen's presence grounded the film, adding a touch of tragic realism to a hyper-stylized story. What's remarkable about Madsen is how he can take Tarantino's heightened dialogue, words that often dance between pulp and poetry, and deliver them with an authenticity that makes you believe this is exactly how such a character would speak. It's no wonder Tarantino has kept him close across decades. Madsen isn't just an actor he admires. He's part of the filmmaker's creative DNA, a performer who helped set the tone for everything that followed. Number 8. Jamie Foxx and Christoph Waltz, Django Unchained. When Quentin Tarantino made Django Unchained, he wasn't just crafting another revenge western. He was reinventing the genre through the partnership of two unlikely heroes. At the heart of it all were Jamie Foxx as Django and Christoph Waltz as Dr. King Schultz, a pairing Tarantino himself has described as the emotional core of the film. One of their most memorable exchanges comes during a tense bounty hunting scene. Schultz asks Django if he's certain about identifying their next target. Django hesitates.
I don't know.
You don't know if you're positive?
I don't know what positive means.
Means you're sure.
Yes.
Yes, what?
Yes, I'm sure that's Ellis Brittle.
The line is delivered with Fox's trademark coolness, offset by Waltz's calm professorial logic. That balance, wit, grit, and moral purpose, became the film's backbone. Tarantino has often said that Waltz is one of his greatest casting choices ever. After Waltz's Oscar-winning turn in *Inglourious Basterds*, Tarantino built Schultz almost entirely around him, trusting his ability to bring intelligence and warmth to a violent world. Meanwhile, Fox gave Django a quiet dignity that grew into explosive confidence, making his journey from slave to avenger one of the most powerful arcs in Tarantino's career. The chemistry between Fox and Waltz was undeniable. Waltz's gentle guidance mirrored Schultz's mentorship of Django, while Fox's stoicism and simmering rage embodied the emotional stakes. Their performances didn't just elevate the film, they earned Waltz another Oscar and cemented Fox's role in one of the defining movies of the 2010s. Tarantino's admiration for these two actors comes down to trust. He handed them a sprawling, provocative story about race, violence, and justice, and they delivered characters who felt at once larger than life and completely human. Now here's something to chew on. If you were Django, would you have trusted Schultz as a partner, or tried to go it alone? Number 7. Bruce Willis, Pulp Fiction. When Quentin Tarantino cast Bruce Willis in Pulp Fiction, he wasn't just hiring an action star, he was reshaping Willis's career. By the early 90s, Willis was already famous for Die Hard, but Tarantino gave him something different. The role of Butch Coolidge, a weary boxer whose quiet toughness stood out in a film full of loud personalities. One of Butch's most defining moments comes after he escapes a horrific ordeal in the pawn shop basement. Turning to his girlfriend Fabienne, he delivers the immortal line,
"Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead."
The calmness in Willis's delivery, after such chaos, captures Tarantino's love for mixing brutal violence with oddly tender understatement. It's a moment of release, darkly comic, yet haunting. Tarantino has said that casting Willis added a layer of gravitas to Pulp Fiction. In a film bursting with eccentric dialogue and wild energy, Willis grounded the story with his understated performance. He wasn't just Butch the boxer, he was a man making one last bid for freedom, and his world weariness carried real weight. Tarantino later admitted that he felt fortunate to convince Willis to take on the role, because it helped prove that his writing could attract and elevate A-list stars. Behind the scenes, Willis was reportedly one of the easiest collaborators Tarantino ever had. Unlike other actors who might have questioned the eccentricities of the script, Willis embraced the dialogue and the structure, trusting Tarantino's vision. That mutual respect shines through in the final product, where Butch's storyline feels just as iconic as Vincent Vega's or Jules Winfield's. Tarantino's admiration for Willis is rooted in that balance, a Hollywood superstar who was willing to step into an indie-style film and play it straight without ego. Now here's something worth thinking about. If you were Butch, would you have risked everything to go back and save Marcellus, or would you have kept running? Number 6. Kurt Russell, The Hateful Eight. When Quentin Tarantino brought Kurt Russell into The Hateful Eight, he knew he was getting an actor with the kind of tough, old-school presence that could anchor a claustrophobic Western. Russell played John Ruth, the Hangman, a bounty hunter obsessed with bringing his prisoner Daisy Domergue to justice. His character was blunt, violent, and unrelenting, a man who believed that no criminal should escape the noose. One of John Ruth's most memorable lines comes when he's fed up with Daisy's constant chatter. Looking her squarely in the eye, he warns,
Daisy, I want us to work out a signal system of communication. When I elbow you real hard in the face, that means shut up.
It's dark, disturbing, and laced with Tarantino's pitch-black humor. Russell delivered the line with a mix of menace and comic exaggeration that perfectly matched the film's tone. Behind the scenes, Russell was the seasoned pro Tarantino needed. He brought credibility to a role that could have easily felt over the top, grounding John Ruth as a believable frontier lawman even in a script full of exaggeration and theatrics. Tarantino later remarked that Russell's presence helped balance the ensemble, giving the story a center of gravity amidst the chaos of betrayal, blizzards, and bloodshed. The most infamous incident from the set, though, wasn't scripted. In one scene, Russell smashed a guitar, unaware that it was an actual antique on loan from a museum, not a prop. Jennifer Jason Leigh's horrified reaction was real, and Tarantino kept it in the final cut. While the accident caused some tension, it also added to the legend of Russell's performance. Raw, unpredictable, and utterly authentic. So here's something to chew on. If you found yourself snowed in with 8 strangers, each hiding dangerous secrets, would you try to play peacemaker, or would you start eyeing the exits? Number 5. Brad Pitt, Inglourious Basterds. When Quentin Tarantino cast Brad Pitt as Lieutenant Aldo Raine in Inglourious Basterds, he gave him one of the juiciest parts of his career. Aldo was a Tennessee-born, scar-throated leader of a ragtag squad of Jewish-American soldiers with one mission: kill Nazis. Pitt leaned into the role with a cartoonish Southern twang, a twinkle of mischief, and a ruthless edge that made him unforgettable. One of Aldo's defining moments comes when he rallies his men before sending them on their bloody campaign. He doesn't dress it up with flowery speeches, he just lays it out plain.
Probably heard we ain't in the prisoner-taking business. We in the killing Nazi business. And cousin, business is booming.
Delivered with Pitt's mix of bravado and dry wit, the line became instantly iconic and perfectly set the tone for Tarantino's revisionist World War II. What made Pitt so effective here was his ability to balance brutality with humor. Aldo Raine could be terrifying in one moment, then darkly hilarious the next. Tarantino has often said that Pitt's performance walked the fine line he wanted, over the top, yet rooted in a kind of scrappy authenticity. It's that exact balance that makes audiences cheer, even as they're watching shocking violence unfold. Behind the scenes, Pitt and Tarantino were a perfect creative match. Pitt loved Tarantino's outrageous dialogue, and Tarantino trusted Pitt to lean all the way into the absurdity of the role. The result was a character who felt larger than life, but never unbelievable. Aldo Raine wasn't just a soldier, he was a legend in the making, the kind of figure who could only exist in Tarantino's twisted version of history. Here's a thought for you. If you were dropped into Tarantino's alternate World War II, would you rather be part of Aldo Raine's crew, or would you try to survive quietly on the sidelines? Number 4. Leonardo DiCaprio, Django Unchained. When Leonardo DiCaprio joined Django Unchained, it was his first time playing a truly despicable villain. Up until then, he'd been the leading man, the tortured hero, or the romantic idol. But Tarantino convinced him to dive headfirst into Calvin Candy, a sadistic plantation owner with a velvet smile and a heart of pure cruelty. Candy is introduced with charm, but it doesn't take long before his true nature boils to the surface. The dinner table confrontation is the moment everyone remembers. With the room full of tension, DiCaprio delivers that now famous line.
Well, gentlemen, you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
What makes it so chilling isn't just the words, but the way DiCaprio says them, leaning back, savoring every syllable, like a cat toying with its prey. Then came the accident that became legend. In the middle of filming, DiCaprio slammed his hand onto a table, accidentally smashing a glass. Blood poured from the cut, but he stayed in character, grabbing Kerry Washington's face and smearing his real blood on her cheek. Tarantino loved it, kept the cameras rolling, and the take ended up in the movie. It's the kind of raw intensity that only happens once in a career. Tarantino later admitted that DiCaprio surprised even him with how far he was willing to go. Calvin Candy was so vile that Tarantino joked he almost hated Leo for making the character so convincing. And yet, that's exactly what he wanted. An actor fearless enough to make the audience squirm. Here's a thought. If you were sitting at that dinner table across from Candy, do you think you'd keep your composure? Or would you completely fall apart under that piercing stare? Number 3, Uma Thurman, Kill Bill Volume 1. Quentin Tarantino has often said he wouldn't have made Kill Bill without Uma Thurman. She wasn't just his muse. She helped shape the character of the bride, even contributing ideas to the script years before filming began. Their collaboration is legendary, but it wasn't without scars, literally. In the film's shocking opening, David Carradine's Bill toys with the bride before putting a bullet in her head at point-blank range. The line he delivers,
"Do you find me sadistic? This is me at my most masochistic,"
hangs in the air like a death sentence. Thurman lying bloodied on the floor doesn't have much dialogue here. Instead, she acts with her eyes. Rage, betrayal, and a vow for vengeance all packed into a single glare. It's one of the purest examples of Tarantino trusting Thurman to carry the weight of the story on her shoulders. But off-screen, things got more complicated. During production, Thurman was seriously injured in a stunt gone wrong when a car crash scene wasn't properly tested. She later said she felt pressured into doing it and that the fallout strained her relationship with Tarantino for years. Still, she never denied the artistry of the final film, or the fact that he wrote the role with her voice in mind. Their friendship eventually healed, but the experience shows how close the line between genius and recklessness can be on a Tarantino set. What's remarkable is that despite everything, Thurman's performance remains iconic. She made the bride not just a swordswoman, but a mother, a survivor, and a woman burning with fury. It's a performance that could only come from someone willing to dive headfirst into the fire. Let me ask, if you had the chance to take on the Deadly Viper assassination squad, do you think you'd survive, or would you fall before even reaching Oren Ishii? Number 2. Harvey Keitel, Mean Streets While Reservoir Dogs. Before Quentin Tarantino became a household name, Harvey Keitel was already a giant in the world of serious cinema. Known for his collaborations with Martin Scorsese, especially in Mean Streets, Keitel was one of the actors who shaped the gritty realism of American crime films in the 1970s. Tarantino has said many times that without Keitel, Reservoir Dogs might never have been made. In Mean Streets, 1973, Keitel delivers one of the film's defining lines as Charlie, a small-time hustler struggling with morality.
You don't make up for your sins in the church. You do it in the streets. You do it at home. The rest is bullshit and you know it.
It's a credo that perfectly sums up Scorsese's vision of urban guilt and redemption, and it clearly influenced Tarantino's worldview as well. Years later, Keitel took a chance on a young, unproven Tarantino by not only starring in Reservoir Dogs, but also helping secure financing. His turn as Mr. White is full of contradictions, brutal and cold-blooded one moment, fatherly and loyal the next. His scenes with Tim Roth's Dying Mr. Orange are still heartbreaking because Keitel plays them with such quiet desperation. Tarantino has called Keitel a mentor, someone who taught him what it meant to truly anchor a film. Without Keitel's early faith, Tarantino might not have gotten the career breakthrough that launched everything else. That's why, even though Keitel doesn't appear in every Tarantino project, his presence looms over the director's entire filmography. So here's something to think about. If you were a struggling young filmmaker with one script in your hands, who would you dream of as your first big collaborator? A proven star like Keitel who could get the project funded, or a fresh unknown who might grow with you? Number 1. Samuel L. Jackson, Pulp Fiction and Beyond. When people think about Quentin Tarantino's films, one voice almost always comes to mind: Samuel L. Jackson. From the moment he strutted into Pulp Fiction as Jules Winfield, coolly quoting scripture before blasting away at terrified crooks, Jackson became more than just an actor in Tarantino's movies. He became the director's muse. One of his most unforgettable moments comes at the climax of Pulp Fiction. Holding Ringo, the jittery diner thief, at gunpoint, Jules delivers his reworked Ezekiel sermon.
You're the weak, and I am the tyranny of evil men.
It's a line soaked in menace, philosophy, and surprising vulnerability, and Jackson delivers it with a cadence that only he could pull off. Tarantino has admitted that he often writes dialogue with Jackson's rhythm and inflection in mind. He knows exactly how Jackson can make even the longest monologue flow like jazz, equal parts dangerous and magnetic. That's why Jackson has appeared in so many of Tarantino's films, from Jackie Brown to Django Unchained to The Hateful Eight. Each role feels tailor-made for him. What makes their collaboration so special is trust. Jackson isn't afraid to chew through pages of dialogue or push a character to uncomfortable extremes, and Tarantino gives him the space to do it. Together, they've created some of the most iconic screen moments of the last 3 decades. Now here's a question for you. If you had to choose one Samuel L. Jackson monologue to show someone who had never seen a Tarantino movie, would you go with Jules's diner speech, Ordell Robbie's smooth hustler talk in Jackie Brown, or maybe his sinister turn as Steven in Django Unchained? It's a tough call, but whichever you pick, it's proof that Jackson is Tarantino's undisputed #1. Quentin Tarantino's career has always been about more than flashy dialogue and bloody set pieces. At its heart, his cinema is about actors, the voices he trusts to deliver his words, the faces he knows can hold a camera for 5 minutes straight without a single cut, the performers willing to go places most others would hesitate. Looking back through this list, you can see the pattern. He doesn't just pick stars, he creates them, revives them, and shapes them into icons. Uma Thurman's Bride, Brad Pitt's Aldo Rain, Christoph Waltz's Dr. Schultz, Samuel L. Jackson's Jules Winfield, none of those characters would exist in the way we know them without Tarantino handcrafting roles around each actor's strengths. What's fascinating is how he balances affection and friction. Sometimes he butts heads, like with Uma during the Kill Bill car accident aftermath, or with Denzel over a script. Sometimes he heaps praise, like calling Jackson the voice he writes for, or DiCaprio heroic for pushing through injury. But whether it's conflict or camaraderie, Tarantino seems to believe that great art requires heat. The tension, the trust, even the risks, they all fuel performances that stay burned into our memory. Here's something to think about. If Tarantino were to announce just one more film, who do you think he has to bring back? Would it be Jackson to give him one last unforgettable monologue? Uma to finally close the bride's story? Or maybe someone new altogether? A fresh face who could define a new era of Tarantino cinema? That's the beauty of his work. His films spark debates, arguments, and endless rewatches. And no matter where you land, one thing's certain. Quentin Tarantino has built his legend not just on the movies he makes, but on the actors who bring them roaring to life.